the premier sports talk radio, it's Tony's Takes.
Here we go.
Welcome back to another great episode of Tony's Takes. We're live right here on YouTube for the best show in sports talk radio. It's Tony's Takes, and of course, I am not alone in the studio. Sitting next to me is my co-host, Jimmy D. Jim Jam, hello.
Hey, Tony, I missed you.
I know, it's been a while, and a lot has happened, but then a lot has not happened. It's kind of weird. We were in a lull. Our St. Joe's Hawks had finished the season on a high note and a low note, unfortunately. Basketball, Joel Embiid injured, an injured Joel Embiid. We were lost. We were gone without our North Star, the person who's our guiding light through the times of no Eagles football and no St. Joe's basketball, when it's just Sixers basketball. And the one man we care about gets injured and goes away. And so what did that leave us with? Phillies opening day. And the Philadelphia Phillies, that's right, the team that I have argued over with Jim for many a days, since back in September when we went back to the live format, the Philadelphia Phillies, the team that refuses to make the playoffs for me, has opening day today. I am wearing my Phillies gear. Jim is wearing his Phillies gear. This is the team that we get the most excited for on Tony's Takes, believe it or not. It's the team that the Phillies bring us the most amount of agony out of any other sports team in this city. And it's because, for me, they are the most promising of all the franchises, and yet they are the ones who come up short the most. The Eagles, they have a tendency to overperform sometimes. Now, this year was different because the Eagles they fell apart, but last year they outperformed where they were supposed to be, I believe. And the year before that, they outperformed where they were supposed to be. And they actually led us to a false sense of security with the Eagles team. This Phillies team, who has a very good batting rotation and a terrible pitching staff, is just good enough to get my hopes up, and they play just well enough for me to prove that they're a good team, but then they know how to fail at the right time, at the right moment, and I buy into them every year. I get excited for them every year because there's nothing as exciting as opening day. Am I right, Jim?
Oh, nothing. I watch it every year.
Nothing as exciting as opening day, and yet we all know, come October, me and Jim are going to be singing a very different tune. But speaking of tunes to sing, since it's opening day, I thought it would be fun if me and Jim sang a song for you. Now, I don't know if Jim's going to join along with this one. This might be a Tony solo. But Eviction Night was promised a song. And so after many months of holding out, of many months of saying I won't do it, I refuse to do it, I will now sing a song and hopefully not get banned from YouTube by singing it. Hopefully I'm putting enough of an original spin on this classic song to get everyone ready. Jim, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I hope we are not in any legal trouble.
I hope not, but I have great lawyers.
No, you don't. You don't have one. Hold on, let me get a swig of water. Jim, fill in real quick. Tell the people what happened to the Phillies today.
So, of course, if you didn't just see the news, the Phillies won 3-2 in extra innings. Tremendous plays had to happen in order to get there and to save the Phillies. So we're going to dive a little deeper into that. And it was exciting, very exciting game to watch, especially opening day. Like I said, I always watch it. And it's impossible to watch every game. 162 games is just, it's so many. I've only done that one time. That was 2014. I was single, and I had a lot of time on my hands.
You might be single.
And I was in college.
You might be single today.
Oh, I might be.
After we get to that later story.
Oh.
And this win references exactly what I'm saying. We get excited. That was an exciting game.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like that at the end of the season. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, take me out to the ball game. Take
me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back.
Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame.
Or it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
We were way off tune, but that was fun.
Hey, nobody's hating on us. They love it.
Did the people love it in the chat?
Not yet. They will, though.
Let us know if you like it in the chat. Hopefully we don't get hit with any copyrights.
Oh, man. That was a fun game to watch, though. And, I think that big play by Roman Quinn, I didn't get to see it because I was on my way over to the studio, but I listened to it. The double bouncer to home with JT in the tag. I thought that was the epitome of the game. That was the big turning point for us to go in and take it. And, we came up to bat in the bottom of the 10th, and we did it.
I don't think the folks understand how excited Jim is for Phillies baseball. Most of the time, Jim comes to the studio, and he is not touching the mic. He's kind of looking at his keyboard. I have to signal to him, hey, you got to say something. Today, he has his both hands wrapped around the microphone. He is hunched over. He is as intimately close to the microphone as you could possibly be. That's how you know Jim is excited for Phillies baseball. And good. It was an excellent game. I want to talk about, there was a couple things that stood out to me in today's game, Jim. And the first one was Alec Boehm and his ability to field the ball. He did a very good job today. It was very windy, and he was able to catch a couple of those, they're not sack flies, but they're out into the foul territory. They're up in the air, and he's able to track them down and catch really important balls that, it's so easy to not care when it's a foul ball because there's no implication to the play, right? It's a dead ball if you don't catch it. But he was able to track down those important hits and get us the outs needed in order to ignore that, Jim. It's fine. My phone is ringing, folks. I thought I had removed it from the wall. Not a big deal. Actually, Jim, go over there and hit the red button on it. That's going to annoy me now. I unplugged that phone. Sorry, folks. What I had... Oh, no. This makes for great radio. I'm going to have to yell at whoever... Was it an anonymous phone number? Did it have a name?
It was actually from St. Joe's.
No way. They're calling me up. They saw the title of today's episode.
Yep, they know what we're talking about.
They know what we're talking about today. That's funny. They're probably looking for my money. Good luck. Good luck getting it out of my dead hands.
So, Tony, one of the things that you were touching there was the weather going into this game was crazy. They were
windy,
23-mile-an-hour winds from left field to, I guess, home, like that direction. Some gusts up to 30 miles an hour. And at that time, that foul ball that Boehm caught, it was like 23 miles an hour or something. And he, you could see him scrambling all over, and he just kind of like, he has a long body, so he can reach a little bit
6'5".
He can reach further than anybody else. So you could see him like that full display of his athletic ability to kind of reach out for those balls that were hard to read.
And he called off on one of them, JT. He called JT off a couple times coming in for the ball. Hey, get out. Tell him the veteran on the big deal, get out of my way. I'm catching this ball. That was something else to note that I thought was pretty substantial in the game. It's very interesting. So, Jim, let's talk about this. And it's kind of tying into the theme of what this entire season's going to be for the Phillies. And it's something that I had texted you, and I've also texted it to producer Sean P. and producer Tommy Higley. I texted this to both of them, and then I sent this to Jim because I thought I was the crazy one because Tommy and Prince, or Sean P., they did not agree with me. They thought I was crazy. So this is my take. And this was right before the first pitch went off. I said this. With only a few minutes until first pitch, I'm going to make a bold prediction. Phillies win the division. I have a feeling we have another starting pitcher and reliever acquisition to be made, and our batting lineup really doesn't need improvement in order to be a division winner. And I said, I think, so Tommy and Sean P. said, no way. The Mets are better. The Braves are better. The Nationals are better. And I just don't think that's true. And they don't even mention the Marlins. I think the Marlins are better than the Nats, or they could be. and I said this to Jim. They think the Mets and the Braves are too good, but I think our bats are fine, and we can find the pitching needed to be real contenders in the division. And this was Jim's response. I'm going to say it so he doesn't have to. Mets are no good. Don't know what all the hype is about them. I'm liking the division mixed up between the Nats, Braves, and Phils, and all finishing around 90 to 93 wins. Whoa, that'd be very interesting. Mets and Marlins suffer at the end of the season. I'm with you, essentially. Jim, do you want to explain further what you mean by that?
Well, I think that all the hype around the Mets really is just because of Francisco Lindor. I don't think everybody just sees one big name. And one of the things I wanted to touch about on this show tonight is that baseball is such a unique sport because you have so many players on each team, and there's so many stars. Like every team, somebody could name 5 people on that team that they think is a star. It's every team across the MLB, which is
you could do it with the Phillies right now.
Yeah, exactly. And there's fans just like us that are that are for the Mets, or fans for the Nats, and fans for the Braves. They all do the same thing, and that's what is different about baseball versus other sports. Basketball, every team has 2 players, 3 players at the most. We're not even going to touch hockey, but football,
because we know nothing about
football.
it.
There are teams where you're like, okay, this team doesn't even have any talent, And I don't want to put your Jets on blast, but there are times when you're like, okay, there's Quinnen Williams. There's one player that I can think of.
It used to be Jamal Adams, and they got rid of him.
Yeah, so I guess that's my point. It's like baseball is there can be so much talent on each team, and it's so exciting to watch that.
But it doesn't even mean they play well.
Exactly. And I think that that's where the Mets line up. I think that's where the Marlins always line up, is that they have talented players, but they never seem to put anything together.
Or some years they do, and you didn't expect it.
Exactly. So what I'm kind of banking on here is that the Mets are that way, the Marlins are that way, and I think that the Phillies, Nats, and Braves are the opposite. I think that they are teams. They're well put together teams. They're teams that have played together over the last few years, and I think that they're all going to be competing for, like I said, 90 to 93. I think I was singing another tune a few weeks ago when we had former producer Tommy on the show, and I said the Phillies are going to win 85 games. I'm changing my mind.
You're going higher.
I'm going higher. I think this is possible. And I think what you're saying with the acquisition of another starter or reliever,
it's in the cards.
It's in the cards. I do think so. But there are problems with this team that I noticed today too.
Okay, what was one of them?
New year, same Phillies. We leave runners on base. I think we had 7 runners left on base or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, we can't give run support to our best pitcher who only let up 2 runs. Getting 3 runs, and one of those runs is a extra innings man starting on second base. That's not going to cut it for me through the whole season. We need to start hitting the ball, and if we have the lineup that we say that we do, I want to see it.
But last year, we averaged 6 runs a game. So it's not like I don't even think that's a sign of what happened last year, because last year we did provide the run support. It was the bullpen that let down our starting pitching.
Well, the issue with that is I tend to see that we score all the runs on the games where we have pitchers
it doesn't
that
matter.
let up all the runs.
It's 9-9.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I feel like that's where we've always been, and maybe that'll change this year. I think maybe we'll have better pitching, and then we won't have to worry about letting up 9 runs a game with our bad pitchers.
Okay. I definitely think there's an acquisition to be had with this team. We are not screwed, right? How many times do we see it where a team sells off a guy in July where they realize they don't need him? And that can happen for the Phillies if we're smart about it. If we don't just sit around and wait for it to happen. Good teams are very proactive. Look at the Dodgers. They always know how to make the acquisition as a preemptive maneuver. They don't wait to see when the gap forms. They see the gap before it forms, and they fill it before we could even notice it. I need the Phillies to do that. Look at Bryce Harper, Jim. That was the move of, we have a big gap and we're going to fill it. I would not consider that proactive. We were building from a worse standpoint. We had to build to get where we are now. We were going to be in the situation of we're plugging up holes before we could ever be proactive. But now we have the type of roster where you have to be proactive. We don't have a AA system or a AAA system that's very good. And we have a roster with holes in it that are sometimes hidden, I believe, that aren't always out for us to see. Not always is it the bullpen that's screwing us up. Of course, the bullpen's the biggest issue ever, but look at a scenario Jim just said. We're still a batter short from being truly consistent. Rhys Hoskins still lets us down more times than he doesn't. He still has many issues and never comes up clutch compared to Bryce. Imagine if we had two guys like Bryce. I'm not saying that Rhys Hoskins has to hit the ball all the time, but the way that Bryce Harper attacks at the plate is so different than Rhys Hoskins, who's timid and looks for walks. Jim, am I off base by saying that?
No, so yeah, one of the things about bringing Bryce to this team was that his personality, the way that he plays, he's lightning in a bottle. And before that, you had an entire team that was timid, shy, young guys that just got brought up, and they needed not only a veteran like that, but they just needed a teammate that was going to get them jazzed up to play baseball every day. You had Aaron Nola as the face of the team, but who was really excited? Aaron Nola shows no personality at all when he's out there.
And I'm so tired of watching Rhys Hoskins go out there and be a slug.
Yeah, well,
it's so annoying. Today he did it.
Again, to kind of circle back to what I was saying before, where everybody can say that they have 5 guys on the team where that they think are like stars, but really, that's just us as crazed fans thinking that everybody's better than what they really are. You look at McCutchen, who, he had the ACL tear. He's not, everybody still thinks that he's the same McCutchen that we had the first year that we signed him. Guess what? He's 2 years older than that now. He's a whole ACL surgery removed. I thought it was amazing that he ran as quick as he did on the tag up earlier. But the idea is that we're not accounting for, degradation in these players, and we're not accounting for some of the flaws in their play, like you were mentioning. Adam Hazley, for instance, we think that he's like an up and coming star, but guess what? I haven't seen him hit to the warning track, and maybe that's a fallacy. Maybe he really did hit a couple home runs last year, but the kid lacks some power, and I know he's fast and everything, but there are some flaws in a lot of these guys' game, and we need to fix that.
Yeah, and I don't know what you think about my other statement of good teams are proactive in filling these gaps. They don't wait around.
And it seems like the Phillies tend to do the opposite sometimes.
They wait till it's so bad that we have to do it, and then we look desperate, rather than making. So, for example, so we can talk till we're blue in the face about how pitching's not good enough, relief pitching, but a 4D chess move, I believe, would be the Phillies manager going, relief pitching's not that great, but we can make starting pitching even better. And they go out and get another starting pitcher. All these teams think Phillies are looking for relief. And we come out and we strengthen our starting pitching, because if you actually looked at it and knew what you were talking about, you'd realize this is 2.5-man rotation. We need to buff this out to 3.5, 4-man rotation, like a solid rotation. And sure, relief pitching is still a problem. We can fill that as we go. But let's not just as Phillies fans, only focus on one area. Let's acknowledge that we could bring in another batter who brings a little bit more power or a little bit more consistency to the roster and really gets those RBIs or those home runs needed. Bryce Harper's not a slugger in the true sense. He doesn't hit that many home runs compared to other real-time, home run hitters in this league. He's good. He has the power. He can play well. But if Bryce Harper is your second best home run hitter, now you have a really good team.
Sure. Yeah. Well, if somebody's hitting more home runs than Bryce, then
right.
Yeah.
And look at the Nats. Look at when they used to have Anthony Rendon. Right. Anthony Rendon was a better hitter than Bryce Harper.
And the Nats went pretty far, if I recall.
Thanks to him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's these things. They have to fill these things in. And one of the things you touched on with the relief pitching, a lot of people don't realize this, but the acquisitions that they made in the offseason, there was a useless fact of the day that NBC Sports put on for the game, and it was that all of the average fastball velocity of our relief pitchers now is first in the MLB. Because we got Coonrod, who averages like 97.6 on his fastball, and then everybody else, like they're in like the 93 and higher. So you have these relief pitchers that average like 94.6 total. Mm-hmm. So we have some fast throwers. We got some heat seekers. Jose Alvarado was pumping 100 today.
I was going to say he was throwing with heat today.
So I don't know. I don't think the problem is with relief pitching anymore. Maybe they don't go deep in games or anything. Maybe, like you said, the acquisition might be, let's get a starter that can go 7 every night.
Yeah. and mitigate that risk, that we've plugged the hole just good enough. Not saying that it's impossible, but if the market's dry on relievers, because it's now the most sought out position in baseball, more so than a starting pitching, when they zig, we zag. Go find that 8-inning guy and get a good price on him while everyone else is focused on relief pitching. Go get a good batter. I'm not saying that Bryce Harper is going to be the best player on the team regardless, but we need a specialist out there who can hit the ball out of the park. We have a lot of guys who can put the ball in play, it feels like. We have a lot of guys who get doubles on this team. Not a lot of home run hitting on this program. The fact that Didi is our number one home run hitter last year, that's a sign, Jim. That's a sign that we need another slugger. We have guys who put the ball in play, but we don't have guys who hit it out of the park, and that's just not the way the league goes anymore.
I could talk all night about Didi.
I love Didi.
There were some cringe-worthy things happening today with Didi, and I just
it's the first game of the season.
I know, but 3 Ks, I can't have that from our supposed leading hitter from last year.
And he was the leading hitter. Like, let's not get it twisted.
I don't know. You can't sign contracts and then come out with 3 Ks. We need come back, and let's play. Let's play some ball. I need him going 3 for 3.
Harrison Morris goes, they zig, we zag. 100% agree. Need a solid 7-inning guy for insurance. Thank you, Harrison, for commenting on the show. Zig, zag, Gonzaga. Busting my bracket. That could be a slam poem.
It's a fine Jesuit
They
school.
zig, they zag, Gonzaga. Oh, my bracket. Okay, Jim, I think it's time you tell us about your April Fools. April Fools! I don't care about the Phillies. Okay, go, Jim.
April Fool's prank. Oh, man. So this was a good
Oh, wait,
one.
hold on 1 second. If you're listening to the live show, make sure to leave comments. We do read them on the show. And if you're here for the first time, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you get notified every time we go live. Okay, Jim, sorry, I had to do that.
So, phenomenal prank last night. I go to the bathroom at my fiance's house, and it's completely dark pretty much in the upstairs part of her house, and she goes up to get water out of the fridge, and the automatic water filter or whatever. So I come out of the bathroom, I go up the stairs. She doesn't hear me because she doesn't turn around as I get to the top of the stairs. So I'm like, oh, this is great. Right at the top of the stairs, there's like this, she has this table with a cover on the table that kind of hangs down. And then there's a counter that's like blocking that view. So I go over this baby gate because they watch her niece sometimes. So I go over the baby gate and I hide underneath the table while she's turned away filling up the water. As she comes,
So wait, you are under the table now.
I'm under the table. I hid under the table underneath the cover.
And where is this table located? Like, where she's coming out of the bathroom or the kitchen?
She's coming out of the kitchen around the counter that's blocking the view. So she can't see anything that's under the table because the counter's blocking that view.
Okay, the table is up against this counter.
There's like probably 4 feet between the table and the counter.
Okay, got it. Understand.
So she comes walking around that counter, and I just go out and I scream like this kind of like evil demonic scream type thing,
and
like try and grab her leg. She goes slipping back like 2 or 3 feet and then lands on her rump, and she didn't even realize it was me until I came out from underneath the table. It was hilarious.
So wait, did she not know you were in her house?
No, she didn't even realize. She didn't realize that it was me hiding underneath the table. She didn't realize until she opened her eyes after she was on the ground. She thought it was like some scary, like, I don't know, demon or something.
How is this April Fool's?
I don't know.
This is just cruel.
Oh, it wasn't cruel. It's funny. She started laughing. We both started laughing. It's all good.
Are you sure you can sleep well at night?
Yeah.
Can you sleep with one? Do you know how to sleep with one eye open?
You never jump scared someone?
I have, but I wouldn't consider that April Fool's. That's
just thought
more
it was
Halloween
I thought it was
style.
more of like a prank, just, in the celebration of April Fool's.
I feel bad for Julie. I think she needs to maybe find new people.
It was quite the jump. I'll tell you what.
Oh, I bet. I was hoping that there was gonna be something in her hand, like she was carrying a cake or her dinner, and you had done that. That would have been even better.
Well, she was carrying the water.
Did it go everywhere? Were you in the splash zone?
It was in bottles, thankfully. But yeah, I thought she was gonna just jump and just be like, ah, but it was more like, ah, and just like landed. I did not think she was gonna fall down. That was crazy.
I've fallen and I can't get up. That's great. Okay, Jim, thanks for that lovely story. I think it's time for me to share a story.
Oh.
This is per the Delco Times, the illustrious institution of reporting and knowledge in the Delaware County and the Delaware Valley. For those who don't know about the Delco Times, don't worry, I didn't know about it either before this show. And the Delco Times, apparently, this was given to me by producer Sean Higley. This was given to me by producer Tommy Higley. And he had found this because it is his life mission to be an expert on this subject matter. And the Delaware County Times allows people to write in with their opinions. And this one was written by a man named Pete down the street. And it goes like this. This is the title of the opinion paper. Phil is the man. Okay, let's just pause there. We went from Phillies, a team that I like, to another Phil Martelli. Life comes at you fast. This is what the opinion paper says. Let us all pause for a moment and take a much-needed timeout from the daily barrage of Trump v. Biden bashing and offer hearty congratulations to a consummate gentleman and iconic basketball coach by the name of Phil Martelli. Certainly, no intro necessary, but in case no one noticed, the same Phil Martelli is on the verge of going to college basketball's, quote, Final Four as assistant head coach to Juwan Howard in pursuit of a national basketball championship for the University of Michigan. Perhaps I'll send a thank you letter to Jill Bodensteiner, director of athletics for men's and women's basketball on Hawk Hill, who was mostly responsible for Phil's untimely release after approximately 25 years of building a men's basketball program that compiled an impressive history of winning basketball. More importantly, countless young men who graduated from that program went on to become quality and productive citizens who have made a difference due in large part to Coach Martelli's enormous positive influence and character that he exuded no matter the adversity that he faced. Let's read that line one more time. The character that he exuded no matter the adversity that he faced. They're talking about Phil Martelli. Can you believe it? I can't. A great friend of mine once said that good players adjust, and Coach Martelli remains a testament to those words. A giant thank you goes out to Phil's immediate family, who don't tweet in unbelievably amounts about him. They don't tweet about him at all. Oh, wait, they do. An extended St. Joe's family for tons of support along the way. And by the way, congratulations to Jill Bodensteiner and the program's stellar 5-15 record in 2020. And sincere thank you for making all this possible. Thanks, Pete from down the street. Thanks for reminding me that Phil lost. They lost. Jim, Michigan, wait, are they in the Final Four? Wait, someone tap me. Someone wake me up. Am I in a dream? Oh, wait, that's right. Michigan lost. You know, Phil Martelli's the number one coach we're always talking about. We're always talking about Phil Martelli. Oh, he's the greatest assistant ever. I've never met an assistant like Phil Martelli. Number one in my heart. Number one in Philadelphia's heart. That's why LaSalle gave him a job. Temple gave him a job. Temple had an opening. They didn't give him a job. Why didn't they just give him the job at Villanova if Phil's such a great coach? He's the greatest assistant coach ever. Is that why they don't talk about Gonzaga's assistant coach? Is that why they don't talk about, I don't know, Duke's assistant coach? Could you name him, Jim? No, you couldn't. Let me answer that. No, you couldn't. Are they calling him up? The great Roy Williams just retired. I don't hear Phil's name in the running. Indiana, a historic program, one of the gems of college basketball. I heard nothing about Phil Martelli being in the running. Heard nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. You think UNC is going to take a look at him?
No way.
Do you think they're going to fire Juwan Howard after that embarrassment? And they're going to bring in Phil Martelli to be the head coach? If Phil Martelli was a better coach, he'd get that job, wouldn't he? We live in an egalitarian society. Hey, Phil Martelli's such a great coach. There's a couple basketball NBA openings. The Houston Rockets need a new coach, possibly. I don't think they'll get one. I don't think they should get one. because the guy's only been in there for 3 months and I feel bad for him. But that's just an example. There are teams out there who need coaches, and yet none of them call on our friend Phil. So Pete down the street, shove it. You're writing at the Delco Times, and you're so... I'd rather talk about Trump and Biden than talk about this, quite frankly. No one cares about what you have to say from your basement in Delaware County. In fact, I think Pete down the street is actually Phil from Michigan. Phil the Pill. That's who I think Pete down the street is. I think Pete down the street is one of Phil Martelli's defenders, one of Phil Martelli's cronies. Let's read this part. Let's go back to Pete on the street. Let's read. Remember when I highlighted this? Character that he exuded, no matter the adversity that he faced. Last time I checked, he went around to every major radio station and complained. Embiid and Seed all over Philadelphia radio. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you, Angelo. Ange, I loved my Friday morning call-in. What am I going to do now that I'm irrelevant? I'm not going to be able to call into 94.1 WIP. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'll see you guys later. I'm going to go to Michigan. I'm going to miss you guys in Michigan. Adversity. You got fired. And the adversity that you showed us that you were able to face was throw a pity party all over my radio.
It was That was embarrassing on
WIP.
WIP, yeah.
Oh yeah, adversity. And it just goes back like, look, this guy Pete down the street is just picking at a scab that he does. That if someone with a spine actually saw Pete on the street, if I saw Street Pete on the street, we would meet, and I would give him the facts. 5-15 record in 2020. What about 2021? Why don't you want to mention that? Why don't you want to mention the fact that Taylor Funk is coming back? Why don't you want to mention about the new transfer? Who's 7 feet tall, 6'10", 250 pounds.
Players are coming to St. Joe's.
Ajiki Obina from Vanderbilt.
Players are choosing to come to St. Joe's.
Taylor Funk staying at St. Joe's.
After the 5-15 record. They're choosing to come here for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not for Phil.
It's Coach Billy Lang.
Exactly.
Hey, there was a new photo of Don DeJulia signing the wall with Billy Lang. Is that a backstab for Phil? That his boy, Don DeJulia, the guy who protected him for all those years, hanging out at St. Joe's signing things with Billy Lang?
Well, with how insecure
Philly
Phil is,
Billy.
He probably did take it as an insult.
Yeah, probably. And my favorite is this. My favorite is this. A giant thank you goes out to Phil's immediate family for the support all along the way. Yeah, Phil's immediate family are the biggest haters on St. Joe's ever. They have a vendetta. I know Phil's Italian like me, but boy, does he take vendetta very seriously.
Well, this was probably written by a family member.
I honestly think Pete on the street is Phil the Pill.
Yeah, it could be. These are op-eds that are just like taken in from the street.
From
right?
the illustrious Delco Times, who throws stones at glass houses. Once again, folks, keep picking at the scab. Because you know what Jim and I are going to do? We're going to laugh our way to a Final Four championship with Philly Billy. Philly Billy's going to bring us some Final Four because we're getting real people to stay. And the team's going to be really good next year. And I can't wait. I'm going to toot my horn from the mountaintop. Sing from the mountaintop. And I'm going to sing it really loud so everyone in the back of the room can hear that Philly Billy is better than Phil. Boring Phil. Let's play this. Speaking of a man who loves his media, this is John Rothstein interviewing the assistant coach for Michigan, not the coach for Michigan, the assistant coach for Michigan. Here it is. Take me out to the ball game. Wrong one.
Michigan Associate Head Coach Phil Martelli getting ready to return to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2004 when Oklahoma State was inches ahead of St. Joe's in the Meadowlands. Coach, your emotional feelings headed back to the ultimate game.
Well, I'm a little bit tight, and that's why I'm out walking. I'm going to get all my prayers in and hope that we have good health, good fortune, and a great game.
Your thoughts on you?
Oh, wait, hold on.
Is he going to play?
Well, I'm a little bit tight.
Does he need to stretch before he gets out on the court?
Headed back to the ultimate
Hold
game.
on.
Well, I'm a little bit tight.
That's the newest clip. Are you kidding me?
Happy they are, how hard they fight every step of the way. They know where their bread is buttered. Those two guys can really score the ball, and we have to make sure that the pace is in our favor.
Final thing, you and I have spoke about this for a number of times. When you're a part of an Elite Eight game and you don't wind up on the winning end, how often does that thought cross your mind?
Well, for me, the Oklahoma State game ran in my mind for forever.
Yeah. A lot of things run in your mind forever. You've never dropped the fact that you were fired from St. Joe's. That runs in your mind forever.
Burn.
I don't want to burn him. I just want him to go away. I mean, quite frankly, I want the family to go away. I want people to stop talking about him. I want it to just stop. And yet, we're cursed. We're cursed. And Jim, today is Maundy Thursday. And in Maundy Thursday, Jesus, he washes the feet of his apostles in a sign of humility and humbleness. And so, that's right. I will show a little bit of humbleness and humility. Phil, I get it. You were hurt. I understand. You were hurt. Come on the show. Come on Tony's Takes and we'll rectify the issue. Any one of Phil's family members, if you hear this, you are welcome on Tony's Takes any day of the week. You can call in. You can come into the studio. You can write us a letter. I will read it on the show with no comment afterwards. I do not care. But at some point, someone on the sides needs to show a little bit of humility, a little humbleness, shed their pride. It's Holy Week. Come on. That's what I got to say about that, Jim. What do you think?
I think he's a little tight, and I think he needs to go for a walk.
Jim, I will tell you this, that active stretching is better than passive stretching.
That's why he was going for a walk.
And that's why he's going for a walk.
That makes sense.
Excellent.
I don't understand where that came from, but that's cool. I'm glad that he has those opportunities to go ride on Juwan Howard's coattails and go to Elite Eight games. But yeah, like you said, that he does need to just kind of pump the brakes with the St. Joe's stuff. His family needs to just let it go.
And I will say, Phil didn't write this. Pete Down the Street did.
Sure, but I mean, we're 2 years removed now, or we're coming up on 2 years. How long has it been since he's fired? Wasn't it like March or something?
It's 2 years. We're about 2 weeks from the anniversary.
God, man, we're 2 years out from when he got fired. I think he should be on a different path now. And I don't think anybody should be arguing about, whether Phil should have been let go anymore. We're past that. It doesn't matter. It's
the same guys who sit in the same bar in Delaware County and complain to one another in a wood-paneled room with 2 TVs and a guy that, I don't know, is chain smoking in the corner. Let me paint you the picture of what's going on in this Pete Down the Street's world. It's a wood-paneled bar. It looks like 1975, yet the year's 2021. The same 4 people that have been there since 1975, while they're sitting in those very worn-out leather stools, hunched over, drinking Rolling Rock and Yingling, tan and black.
Let me ask you a question.
Talking to one of the... Hold on one second, Jim. I got to finish the scene.
Okay, finish that scene.
There are 2 TVs. One's playing Villanova. The other one's broken. And the bartender, well, he's just looking at all those singles laid out in front of everyone. You know how Jim doesn't drink, he doesn't go to a bar, but they lay the singles out on the bar. That's the tab. They're just running it up. Talking about St. Joe's, even though Villanova's the only one that gets shown on the television. Okay, Jim. That was the scene.
I do like that scene, though. That was very detailed.
Thank you.
Well, do you think that Phil really will ever be a head coach again?
No, he's too old.
How about for a non-Division I school? Do you think he would sink that low? Or do you think that he's too arrogant?
No, he'd just be assistant coach.
Yeah.
Or retire.
That's interesting.
UNC's open. Roy Williams, the great Roy Williams. He retired.
I don't think he'll coach at that level ever.
Oh, you don't think so?
No.
But he's a great coach.
I don't think that he's a great coach.
Oh. Well, Pete Down the Street did.
You
Honestly, Pete Down the Street was wrong when he said, let's take away from Trump and Biden. I'd rather talk about Trump and Biden
I know.
for a full day. I get less angry over that over politics than I do.
I know how infuriated you get from Phil Martelli.
Folks don't even see. At the beginning of this monologue, hands flying everywhere. At the end, that depressing picture of some Delaware County bar in media. Just a depressing scene.
Pete down the street just writing with a number 2 lead pencil.
Yeah, and they mailed it into the
Scribbling it
Delco
out.
Times. Mailed it in. Kind of like how a certain coach I know mailed it in. That's why when he gets interviewed by John Rothstein, they say, Final Four since 2004. Why wasn't it Final Four since 2016? I'm not even going down. I'm not even, Jim, the minute I bring it up again, I'm just going to go for 20 more minutes. I don't know. Jim, do you want to go March Madness update or do you want to go Sixers?
We got to go March Madness as we're on the college stuff.
Okay, give me your update.
So my bracket's 42nd percentile. So that's letting you know how everything's gone since we were last on the show 2 weeks ago. So that's pretty disgusting. I'm like really disappointed to share that with everybody. I thought this was the year. I'd be perfect, but guess not. We got Gonzaga versus UCLA and Houston versus Baylor for the Final Four. And guess what, Tony? You said 2 weeks ago, there's always a number 3. There's always a number 3 seed in the Final Four. Guess what? Not this year. You were close, too. I thought Arkansas was going to do it.
West Virginia really disappointed me this year. I am never going to hitch my wagon to the Huggins train ever again. Now, the full court press, they looked stunned when they saw Syracuse. They looked like deer in headlights when West Virginia saw Syracuse.
How about Boeheim, though?
Never again will I bet against Boeheim. Ever. I think West Virginia was my biggest fluke. In Texas, the fact that both these teams I picked, the absolute flukes.
Texas. I can't believe.
How about
Texas
falling
lost.
up? Why am I forgetting on his name? He coached for VCU, coaches at Texas. What's his name? Google it, Jim.
Okay.
Quickly. I don't know.
Interns on it.
I don't know why I should remember his name. It's one of the most famous coaches in A10 history.
Mike Rhodes?
No, that's the current
that's the
VCU
current
coach.
one? Oh. The one at
Shaka
Texas.
Smart.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Shaka Smart, yeah.
Shaka Smart falling up to the Marquette job. Leaving Texas, going to Marquette. After that loss, I don't know how Marquette could justify hiring him. That was terrible. It was another busting bracket busting moment.
I will say this, Abilene Christian always comes to play when they make the tournament. They always seem to take out one person. I think I'm always going to take them in the first round from now on.
You're not going to take Oral Roberts?
Well, that was one heck of a run. That was a miracle run.
You know what team I was right about? Loyola Chicago, and they still came up short. They still found a way to disappoint.
I never would have guessed Oregon State would have gone as far as they did.
I just saw this tweet. The best job in college basketball just opened up, and everyone's replying, Coach K is still at Duke. I don't know if is UNC. I think UNC. I think they're equal. I think they're literally equal.
So before I went to St. Joe's,
I would say Kansas is a more illustrious job.
I was a huge North Carolina fan.
Mm-hmm.
Loved North Carolina. I hated Duke. I will agree with you. I don't even think that like North Carolina and Duke come close to either Kansas or Kentucky. I think that those two
or UCLA
or UCLA now.
Well,
yeah.
The thing is, UCLA 15 years ago still had the pedigree. Like they were not as far removed from those championships.
Sure.
So it's a little different, but definitely Kansas is. I would say Kansas is number one. I mean, they're all blue bloods. I mean, UCLA, Kentucky, Kansas, UNC, Duke, they're all blue bloods. Yeah. I mean, those are the teams you want to be at. I don't think you could complain about either one.
No. Those four schools, like honestly.
5.
Oh, 5, sorry. Miscounted. 5 schools.
That's it. It's that level and then everyone else.
How could you turn up a job if it was there and offered to you?
I'm going to be intrigued to see who they get. It's going to be someone who is at a big program. I mean, okay, here's an example of. I know Jay Wright's at Villanova, but if UNC comes to you, I don't think Villanova's pedigree is high enough to keep you there.
Yeah, well, definitely.
That's the type of coach I think they're looking for. It's now, I don't think that will ever happen. I think Jay Wright likes winning at Villanova and upsetting those teams, and like he likes thinking I'm creating the seventh blue blood.
Sure.
But I think that's the level of coach. You know, Jim Boeheim's never going to take that job. They're never going to extend it to Jim Boeheim.
I think maybe like the history of those schools is why Villanova will always seem like an upset beating those schools.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it may be like, you know, in an individual year, Villanova is a better school than North Carolina. But I think always people look at it historically and they look at Duke and North Carolina and Kansas and they're like, wow, those teams are always really good. And Villanova tends to go through waves.
Right, and Villanova shrouded more in the Big East wave, right? The Big East got big in the 80s, and that was after many of those Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA teams had won their championships prior, and UNC, and I think, yeah, Villanova's kind of the Big East. They're the second wave of teams that have a good history, have a winning culture. They're just not as illustrious as the first-tier teams, and that's kind of how Georgetown, Villanova. I mean, UConn used to be in that regard. Indiana, like these are good programs that have multiple championships, but they're just not. They're not that next level. But you got to look around that area, and I just don't know who you're gonna find. It's I'd be shocked if it's some no name though. I just don't know who they're gonna bring in. It's gonna be interesting to see.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the Final Four because there's.
I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but I think this is actually a pretty big question. This is one of the big seats. You know, Roy Williams was there for 30 years. This is not some minor change in college basketball.
I know, and you know, growing up watching UNC because I was a huge UNC fan, that was the coach. You know, that was the guy that I was always like, oh, Roy's going to take us all the way. It just always felt like there was a chance with him as the coach. So I'm curious too as to who's going to fill that in. Do you take a young guy? Do you take a? Because it seems like everybody's going young now with all these head coaching hires. Everyone's going young, even St. Joe's.
Yeah.
You know, Billy Lang's pretty young, so I don't think that you get an old guy to supplant an old guy. I think you get a young guy to supplant the old guy.
And that's why, like, I know I keep saying, but Jay Wright, it's like he's 50, he's 55, 60, I think. But he's just young enough where it's like, oh, I know he's going to be here for 15 years.
Sure.
It's just like a little different, but he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. I just, there's got to be, maybe the Loyola Chicago coach takes it. He's 50. He's built a program that's pretty good. It's a little bit different in regards to your guys not staying around for 4 years, but if you can build lasting success like that at a small program like Loyola Chicago, if I'm UNC, why not look at him? That's a real coach.
How about this? Juwan Howard goes to UNC. Phil Martelli ascends.
Yes. I think we found our solution. So, Jim, give me, who do you think is going to win the whole thing? We're down to the Final Four.
The whole thing, I still have my pick, Gonzaga. It's my last team that's still in for me to win some points. So I'm going to go with Gonzaga over UCLA, and then I'm going to go with Baylor over Houston, and it's going to be the 2-1s, and I think Gonzaga is going to take it.
So since West Virginia got knocked out, they were supposed to be in place of Houston for me. I'm going to pick Gonzaga over UCLA. Now, I do not think Gonzaga is, completely safe from an upset. I really think that UCLA could upset them. It's not out of the cards. Not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. This isn't like a lock. This UCLA team beat Michigan. That is the only team I think that was comparable to Gonzaga this year. So they're not bad. And the other thing I'm going to state about Gonzaga is if they win the whole thing, we cannot say, oh, that was a fluke or it's just because it's COVID year. They should be considered one of the great runs in college basketball. The only way you would say it's not a great run is not because of COVID, but because college basketball is not as difficult as it used to be 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. College basketball is different. in that regard, you could say, okay, Gonzaga has a little bit of a different viewpoint on its greatness because college basketball is not as good as it used to be. But don't say COVID. There have been tons of upsets this year, and good teams like Gonzaga find a way to win. And they did. And they're doing it handily. So I can't say that's the first thing. Those are the two things I want to say about Gonzaga. First of all, they're not impervious. I could easily see them losing. However, I don't think they will, and I think that they're one of the great teams ever to play if they win the whole thing. With that said, I'm going to take Gonzaga over UCLA. I'm going to take Houston over Baylor, and I'm going to take Gonzaga over Houston in the final. Okay.
It's interesting because watching Houston struggle against Rutgers.
Rutgers was better than their ranking, though.
Yeah, I still think Rutgers could have gone a little bit further. I thought it was going to be Rutgers-Syracuse at one point, but I was surprised with Houston how they struggled against Rutgers and then kind of whooped up on Syracuse after Syracuse was having that run. That's a fine pick there, Tony.
I think this Houston team is a little bit. They're sleeping on them a little bit, and so that's why I'm going to feel bold. There's going to be one upset.
Baylor looks really athletic to me.
Yes, they are.
They're probably the most explosive athletic team that I've seen.
Who would have guessed the inter-Texas matchup? Baylor versus Houston.
Oh, yeah.
And then Gonzaga and UCLA, that's a West Coast matchup. Where's the East Coast representation? That was supposed to be West Virginia's job. They let us down. Jim, Joel Embiid is returning soon. Now, did he start tonight? I'm going to check.
I'm going to say no. I don't think so, but
we should know this.
Typically, I'm wrong, so he probably is playing tonight.
Well, they're up on the Cavaliers.
No, he's not playing.
He's not playing. He's going to return soon. They cleared him for play. You have in the write-up stated the longer the season goes on, the less confident you are in this team. Why?
So let me be clear. I don't want to say that it's because of the team itself, but it's the surrounding, the environment that this team is in. I think that as I watch this season go on, the Nets climb higher in the rankings, and I see us kind of losing some games that I don't like us losing, like the Clippers, the Nuggets. I don't think that any game against the Cavs is safe for us. I don't think that we have an easy win. So I'm a little worried about losing Joel for the amount of time that we've lost him. I'm hoping that when he comes back, everything's better, but at the same time, we can't just bank on Joel. I've said this before. We can't bank on Joel to be healthy the entire season. We can't even bank on him to be healthy the entire postseason because he's been riddled with injuries throughout his, career, basically. So I do get worried, and like I said, as the season's gone on, I've become less and less confident because of that, because of Joel being injured, because of the Nets getting better, and it just worries me that we won't even make it out of the Eastern Conference championship.
Or make it to the Eastern Conference championship.
That too, because the Heat are scary.
That they are. Okay, I understand what you're saying there, and I don't think I disagree with your what you should be. I understand why you're worried, but what worries me more is the NFL going to 17 games.
It's
for those who don't know, the NFL went to 17 games. I think that ruins the product. I think players are going to complain. They're going to play 17 games. It's not like the current format is 17 weeks to complete 16 games. Now it's 17. It's going to be 18 weeks to complete 17
So basically
games.
you take one preseason game out, right? That's what the proposal is, 3 preseason games instead of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my issue with it. You have 17 games, so that extra game is another game where there's risk of players being injured. Because players get injured pretty much every game. Every game, there's going to be somebody that gets injured. When have you ever watched a game and somebody's not walking off the field?
Never.
Yeah, it's a violent game. People get injured. So they need to expand the roster if that's the case. If somebody's going to be injured, they need to expand more reserves on the team so that, you don't have these silly leagues like the XFL or whatever, the American Allegiance Football, whatever that was a couple years ago.
AFL.
Yeah, you can't have these leagues. Expand the roster, and then unfortunately they just took the salary cap and made it smaller. So now my proposal is that we expand the roster, but they just diminish the salary cap. So now there's going to be less money for players to go more risk throughout the season. 17 games to be, that they're risking their health. They need to expand the cap. They need to expand the roster to make that even. And then that way 17 games or 18 games makes sense. Because you can't have all these players getting injured for one more game or it's not worth it. But they're going to play 17 games because all those games matter for the standings. So it's a conundrum. Right now it's a paradox in my head that I'm going through.
First of all, I don't like an uneven schedule. I don't like 17, and I couldn't agree with you more. We're going to bring on guys who really don't deserve to be on the team to make up for all the injuries that might happen, because guys are going to demand rest, but then they're going to demand more pay. And on top of all that, when you bring in lesser talent to fill in gaps, you get lesser quality football. I think it all just ties in. I don't like it.
I agree.
I understand it's a money grab. I don't know, give the teams 2 bye weeks and then space it out so the NFL gets another week of play, but less teams are playing every week. Sure. So you kind of have more of a focus on each game. You're not flooding the on any given Sunday there's 12 games going on. Well, if you stagger the season out a certain way, at some parts of the season you might only have 8 games on a Sunday, but everyone can watch it nationally and be more focused on it rather than having 5 games at 1 o'clock and they're all regional based. Just a thought.
As a fan, who doesn't love more football, right? We all want to watch more football.
Right, and how many times do we watch and it's there's a block, a CBS and Fox, only Fox is carrying a game.
Yeah, sure.
That's another thing.
That happens all the time.
Right. Now imagine if we did that, but we were focusing people on one game because there's less games going on. You didn't feel like you were missing out.
Right. Now there's there's so much. And before we could just predict the schedule because we knew exactly how the schedule was going to break down. It was the other divisions, whoever finished in the same spot as you in those divisions, you could project the schedule for the next season and know, okay, we're going to play the Raiders and stuff. Well, now there's this extra game that's just going to be well, who the heck is it? Who the heck are we playing? I know the Eagles, it's the Jets. We're playing a game against the Jets. So it's a mess to me, and I think that it's not really well thought out. I think that did they have a CBA, collective bargaining agreement?
They must have.
I don't understand how they came to this conclusion and the players were okay with it, but I guess it, like you said, it's a money grab, and maybe after COVID and everything, after last year, the salary cap will expand more than it did in previous years.
It's going to have to.
Maybe it's going to go up to 220 next year or something. But 17 games is a lot. I don't know how you have Fletcher Cox play 17 games. He's not boy.
He's not going to. Jim, I think that does it for today's episode. We covered a lot today.
A lot of ground, but we've been off. We were off last week.
It was for the better, I guess. Yeah, we needed it. I needed a day off. It happens to us sometimes. Jim, thanks for coming in. It was a good time.
Thanks for having me.
And for those listening to us on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe and double-click the notification bell. That way you get notified every time we go live. Follow the account on Twitter. Follow the show's account on Twitter, please. @Tonys_takes. That's @Tonys_takes. And finally, you want a hot take? You have a hot take. You have an opinion, a question, and you want us to read it out loud on the show. Make sure to send it to the mailbag. Tony'sTakes.1851@gmail.com. That's Tony'sTakes.1851@gmail.com. All questions and opinions and takes are read out loud on the show. Finally, last point, make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. If you're not listening to the live version, which goes live on Thursdays at 7, make sure to listen to the recorded version on Apple Podcast. Leave a 5-star review. All reviews get read on the show. Well, for both me and Jim, thank you for tuning in. It was a great opening day for the Philadelphia Phillies, and I can't wait to talk about them more as the season progresses. We look forward to seeing everyone right here on YouTube next Thursday. This has been another great episode of Tony's Takes.
The premier sports talk radio, it's Tony's Takes.
Here we go.